Do you feel the pressure to grow your business, but doing so feels a bit like drowning? Welcome to Slow Growth Business, the show for business owners and leaders to quiet the noise and lead your business to success, one day at a time, slow and steady. If you feel your business is running you and you're ready to run it, you've come to the right place. Now, here are your hosts, business coaches Jimmy DeGroat and me, Kyle Bullock.
So this is the slow growth. Is this about investments and IRAs and stuff like that? Is that what this is?
Yes, welcome to the next 20 minutes of Data and Spreadsheets with Jimmy and Kyle.
That sounds interesting to you, Kyle, but not to me. I'm not a spreadsheet guy.
Don't turn off the podcast, everyone. We're not going to talk about spreadsheets.
Nah. Kyle texted me last night. What do you want to talk about tomorrow night? I said, let's talk about what I see in a lot of smaller retail firms and even recently, Kyle, large retail firms that operate without a plan. They operate kind of day to day.
Yeah.
And I guess God bless them. They got big doing something right. But you know what we always see? We always see is the owners are pulling their hair out going, well, I've got to change this. I'm not sleeping at night, et cetera, that type of thing. So
That's the number one symptom. We've seen it now over and over, Jimmy, over and over. Owners, managers, leaders of companies who are going, we're exhausted. We have so much to do. There's an enormous amount of stuff to do. We just don't know how to do it. And it almost always comes down to, what's your plan? Let me tell you what I think a plan is not, because this is what sometimes I get told in response. Oh, our plan is that this year we want to do $1 million of revenue or $5 million of revenue, and we want to do it by this date. That is not a plan.
No,
that's a
no,
goal.
that's an outcome.
Yeah, and it would be great, but there's a lot of questions I have, like, how do you want to make the $5 million?
Right.
What are you willing to spend for that?
Yeah.
How long will it actually take you? What does that look like on a daily basis? And if you're making $1 million today, do you expect to make $5 million doing the same processes that you did at $1 million to make five? I mean, these are all questions that rattle through my mind. But fundamentally, a goal is not a plan, right?
No, exactly. I love what you've asked. I've heard you ask recently in some of our consultations is what kind of life do you want to live? And I also, read that in the E-Myth Revisited. What kind of life do you want to live? How much time do you want to spend? How did you say it?
I don't live to work. I work to live. So for the entrepreneur out there, for the business owner who's exhausted, tired, has a goal, hopefully just assess what you think your plan is and go, wait a second, is it just a goal? Do I just have a destination that I want to hit? Let's kind of ask you right now, what's your plan to get there?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what's the first step that you would take someone on, Jimmy, to start formulating a plan that, to keep in line with what we want to talk in this podcast, we can create this plan that hits the ground running hard and fast, and we're going to grow. But really, this whole podcast is about looking at the long-term growth. Slow and steady wins the race. How do you set up a plan that favors that long-term consistent growth? Where do you even start?
Let's take the E-Myth Revisited, for example. The author is dealing with a lady who wants a pie shop. She loves baking pies. She loves this every day, and customers come and they love it, and they give her great feedback and hugs and all that kind of stuff. Well, she's making pies, but now she's making a dozen pies a day. And her business grows because of her ability to make great pies. In the book, they call her the technician. She's a technician. This is what she loves doing. And as the business grew, you got payroll, you got other people. Now you're a manager. Now you're a bookkeeper. Now you're a property, owner, et cetera, equipment leasing, et cetera. It just blows up. And pretty soon, this is where you and I often run into retailers. And that is, This is not what I wanted. So I guess the first thing I would say is let's back up. Let's go back to the very beginning and say, what do you want? If you're the entrepreneur, you're going to be thinking this is where the business could go. If you're the technician, you're thinking, well, these are the kind of pies I want to make. And then the other person that's very integral in this book that I just love is the manager. That's the person in charge of the entrepreneur's vision. What's the original vision? Do you love making pies or do you want to have a pie enterprise?
Yeah, I love those three titles: the technician, the manager, the entrepreneur. They all have roles. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to be the entrepreneur
No,
of your business.
nope.
You don't have to be the entrepreneur of your business. If you love making pies, it's funny that you use that analogy because I know somebody just down the block from me. She is a baker, fantastic baker. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the best cookies and pies
Mm-hmm.
in New Mexico.
Yeah.
And she was a great technician. She has no interest in being a manager, no
Yep.
interest in being an entrepreneur. And so she has restructured her business so that she only opens her doors twice a week. She takes calls by referral only,
Yeah.
and she's very content. You don't
Yes.
have to restructure your business so that you have to be the entrepreneur. You don't have to
Yep.
be that person. And
Right.
and so it's a bit of that know thyself thing. Before we start the plan, what do you really want to be? You don't have to be the manager if that's not your thing. And then you can formulate your plan based on the desires of your heart and the talents that you have inside of you, the gifts
Yeah.
and the values that you have inside of you. You don't
Yep.
have to try to conform that to whatever an Instagram influencer or coach or consultant has told you to do. You just be yourself,
Exactly.
you know?
No, I couldn't agree more. And so my question oftentimes with folks, and maybe it's a little rude to ask this straight out to them, but when is enough? Is top line sales your goal, or what if it's profitability? Or what if it's hours worked in a week? Or what if it's, what's my I want to travel. I've got a sweetheart who lives in Miami and I live in Indiana. What's going to make you happy? And then build your business to that. It's just sad. It's just sad, frankly, to see people living lives of quiet desperation. How many times have you heard someone say, I just want to just get rid of this all and go flip burgers at McDonald's, right?
Yeah. What we'll say down here is, man, if anyone had told me what it meant to run a business, I never would have. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
never would have. And
Yep.
it's sad because if you do it right, it can be a thing of extraordinary joy and freedom. I will say this now that once you know what your passions, your visions, your desires are, to me there does have to be something practical about creating the plan. It can't just exist in your head.
Right.
Because if you just have a plan in your head, what you end up doing is just flying by the seat of your pants.
Hmm.
The plans are going to change, things are going to happen, and the unexpected comes,
Yeah.
and you're going to fly by the seat of your pants. And people do spend their whole careers flying by the seat of their pants, putting one fire out after another. So at a
Hmm.
certain point, when you have a business that you're passionate about and your role that you want to inhibit, you have to put it down on paper.
Hmm.
One of the ways that we do it through our platforms and through our consulting is this thing we literally call recipes. It's like to the
Yep.
baker's point, like we help people create recipes that are literal outlines and guidelines that help them put down on paper the
Right.
very plans for how they do different things in their business.
Yeah.
And on a big scale, I feel like you kind of have to have something written down that says this is more or less how I want the business to operate in a year, in a month,
Right.
on the daily, or else you are just living in your head and it's just going from one fire to another, right?
Yeah. And the thing I love about this, not to be a shameless plug or a commercial, but what I love about creating those recipes with folks is that we create the recipe or we help them create and write the recipe for themselves. It's not something in a Kyle and Jimmy box that we have in an inventory
Yeah.
shelf. One of the things that we've always done at when I started off at Avenue Jewelers in Appleton, Wisconsin, is we've always looked at in creating a vision for our business and creating, kind of what each of our desired outcomes was. Who is doing whatever it is that we're not doing well? Who's doing that the best? And gosh darn it, it's worth a plane ticket. It's worth a pretty, couple $100 dinner to take them out to dinner, to go spend time with them, to go find out. And everybody that's successful loves sharing what they're doing that's successful.
Oh yeah.
You know, I
Yeah.
think unless you're right in the next block, you're probably gonna have a problem with that. But um, that's one of the things that we enjoy doing. But to that point, it was, hey, we're pretty good technicians. I need to find somebody who's a good manager or a good entrepreneur and get ideas. And then, of course, we joined at the time, it was called Fit Groups, but an accountability group where you've got half a dozen or so people in your business or even competitive kind of businesses, but still in retail. Go and look at how they do things. Go look at how they inventory, look at how they manage, run their business, what their profitability is, et cetera. I mean, you name it. That's a lot of fun too, because then if you're not good at being an entrepreneur, go find out from somebody who is good at it and watch them and actually pay them a little money to learn what they're doing right.
I was at a college class talking about what it is that we do, Jimmy, and I was explaining to them. I was taking them through the process of what a coach and consultant kind of does, and I said, really, the benefit that we have, Jimmy and I have, is that we get to work with companies in all different industries and in retail and see how they operate. And we get to see how their plans work.
Mhm.
Some of them are doing, a lot of them are coming with some sort of a problem that they want solved, but I'm hard pressed to find one that doesn't do something well already. So we
Right.
get the benefit of having this giant tool bag of things that
Yeah.
we've observed other people doing really well that we get to come in and share with other people at some point and help make even better than when we first saw it.
Yeah.
All that's to say, to your point, and for all of our listeners, one of the things about making plans for your business is that you don't have to reinvent the wheel to do it. In fact, if you're trying to just write the plan from scratch, from your head, you're probably going to be fighting against a really heavy current. I mean, that's a really hard thing to do when there's so many models of success already out there. You're not losing yourself in your passion and your vision if you're looking at those things and taking from them and making them your own. In fact, you'll
Right.
probably find that you'll be much more successful and it will feel much more like you when you take plans from other companies, other leaders, and you're adapting them for what you have. I mean, that's what artists do. There is not
Right.
a chord that can be played on your piano that hasn't been played already.
Yep.
It's the chords aren't new. What's
Yeah.
new is the passion that comes out of you
Yeah.
onto that keyboard, you know?
Absolutely. You know what? We all learned it in eighth grade. Henry Ford went and visited a meatpacking plant, and he discovered the idea right there for the assembly line. Um, so, the wheel has been invented, but it's how are you going to apply the wheel? And that's that. I think that's a fantastic way to approach it. But my biggest advice is from Doug Meadows down at Marietta, Georgia, David Douglas Diamonds. What are you out to cause? What's your mission? What's your goal? How do you want to live your life? If you're 30 years old and you're starting a business, what do you want to what do you want your family life to be like when you're 55? What do you want? That type of thing. Do you want that home in the south of France, or are you just a great technician that says, you know what? I just want to do spreadsheets. I love doing spreadsheets.
I love that. What are you out to cause? If you think about whether it's in the future or the desires of your heart, where you would like, what kind of a comfortable life you would like to live, and the kind of person that you want to be known as, that's really important. What's the
Hmm.
kind of person you want to be known as? And then just write on a piece of paper, what are the characteristics of that person? If
Yeah.
you looked at them from the outside in, what does a person of integrity look like? What does a successful person in your industry look like? And how can you tell from the outside looking in?
Yeah.
And then all of the answers that you've written down, all those little things of, okay, here's Here's an attribute or a value that that person would show out
Hmm.
towards other people. Then you ask yourself, what does it take to get there? And if you
Hmm.
don't know the answer to that, that's okay.
Yeah.
Find
Oh,
someone
yeah.
who is that person and
Yep.
ask them, how did you get to that?
Yep. Exactly. Exactly. Sharon and I were walking last night. We walk every night, 3 to 5 miles. And we're dealing right now with her father who is aging and not aging well. And same thing with her mother who died just recently. And frankly, my mother, we know these people really well who their entire identity was attached to what they do. And when your entire identity is attached to what you do, and now you are in a hospital bed,
Mm.
immobile, um, you're going to be very unhappy very quickly because you cannot go out and mow the lawn or make dinner or make that meatloaf or, buy Christmas presents for the grandchildren. It really got me thinking, who is Jimmy DeGroat when he can't be helping somebody like we do now? Or I'm also a professional piano player and I play at church. Who is Jimmy DeGroat when he can't play piano anymore? I know we're getting very philosophical, but let's start every plan, or if we don't have one right now, let's go back to what do we want? And you just said it. We can find the roadmap. And if we can't find the roadmap, we can find somebody that's done it. We can go ask them.
Yeah. Well, and by the way, I think the philosophical ideas we're talking about, they're so important. I think it's worth talking about for most of this because that's really what makes everyone's business and person unique. If we just sit here and cookie cut everybody's plan out for them, that's no different than that fast growth mentality
Yeah, yeah,
that
yep,
you'll see
yep,
all over social media and YouTube and
right.
other places. Here's the 3 steps to success, blah blah blah, brought to you by
Yep.
ChatGPT. You know, what we're saying
Hmm.
is be philosophical, be intentional. I will say practically, you don't have to get complicated with a plan. We use recipes, I think because they're just so simple. I mean, I can teach
Hmm.
my young kids how to follow a recipe.
Yep.
And there's some skills, okay, knife skills. I'm not going to give a 6-year-old a knife, right?
Right.
But peanut butter and jelly sandwiches start with recipes, y'all.
Hmm.
And it takes 2 pieces of bread, peanut butter, jelly. Here's how you spread it. There's instructions, there's pictures, right? That all comes from writing it down and sharing that with someone. So when you think about what kind of person you want to be and the values of your business and things, if it seems overly simple to write it down, it probably isn't. In
Hmm.
fact, those are kind of the foundations that people look back on and go, that's really what makes the companies. This
Yeah.
really, everyone starts making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. So, what's the
Yeah.
peanut butter and jelly sandwich of your business? What's the
Yeah.
basic bread and
Yeah.
butter stuff that
Yeah.
makes you who you are? And the way that you write
Yeah.
that down, as simple as possible, maybe 3 steps in a couple of words, adds
Yeah.
tremendous value.
Yeah, that's an exercise that we taught somebody just recently that, and the idea is you're going to die someday. You're not going to be in charge of this business. And are they going to know what to do when you're not around to do it? So quit pulling your hair out and start training other people how to do what you do. By the way, this whole discussion is brought to you by Train Retail. And if you like what Kyle and I are saying right now, and maybe would like your team to hear stuff like this, we have amazing platforms in sales and management at trainretail.com. I hope you're putting in a nice music bed under that and make it sound like a great ad.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Da, 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 da. Well, if you guys can walk away with something from this podcast today, it's that you can have a business that you've been running for decades or bought into that's been running even longer than you've been alive. Or you could be starting a business. It doesn't really matter where you're at on the trajectory. A plan is how you get to where you want to go. So spend time really thinking about where you want to go, and then you can write very simple plans that reflect the kind of values and characters you want to reflect. And you know what, Jimmy, it just hit me. Some people who are listening to this may not be business owners or entrepreneurs. They may be salespeople. or administrative workers. And,
Mhm.
and you might go, well, what value can I bring in changing the culture? And honestly, the greatest recipes and success, I think, have sometimes come from people like on my team who write
Yeah.
down or envision, you know what, here's how we can do this, but better or
Yeah.
faster or smarter. And they're brilliant. So even if you're listening to this and you're not the owner of a company, that shouldn't stop you from trying to be the kind of person and in your career and your field that you want to be, and writing a plan on how to get there, because doing that will make you a leader that can influence the growth of the people and the culture around you in
Yep.
profound ways.
Yep. Yeah, celebrate who you are and what your position is. For example, I said that if from the E-Myth Revisited, every company needs an entrepreneur, a manager, and a technician. And without all three of those, whether it's in the same person, which is not very likely, without all three of those, a company just cannot thrive or be all it's meant to be. So if you're a technician, write recipes for how to do it better, or how to train other people to do it, or what happens when you're not there. That's where I like to see recipes written. Same thing for managers. I always tell managers, listen, if you're not there to push play on these training videos that Kyle and I are putting out, have somebody push play, and we'll take care of the rest, but write a recipe for how that's going to happen. So business with a plan is much better. And a plan starts with your vision of what you want your life to be. Right?
Amen,
Did
bro.
I just sum it up?
I think you did.
Do we need to even play the rest of the podcast, or is that those 10 seconds? Was
No.
that it?
Well, I'll just cut this down to those 10 seconds, shortest podcast we'll ever produce. No.
All right. Hey, let's do this again next week.
Sounds good, buddy. We hope you leave this episode a little better than when you first began. If you'd like more resources to grow your business slow, steady, and consistently, check out our on-demand video catalog at trainretail.com. Or if you have a question or frustration we can help address in your business, write to us about it. We love to help solve big, ugly problems. So hit us up at kyle@trainretail.com or jimmy@trainretail.com. Good luck out there, and we will see you next time.